All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we're going deep on abrasives and adhesives.
Ooh, sounds sticky.
Well, it can be, especially if we're talking about adhesives, right?
Right, right.
But no worries, we're going to break it all down, make it super clear, especially for those of you working with wood or metal.
Tackling some serious projects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you guys sent in a ton of great stuff, articles, even technical guides. We've got it all.
Yeah, it's like we're building our own workshop manual.
Totally. So think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet for choosing the right materials for the job.
No more second guessing at the hardware store.
Exactly. So let's start with something I think everyone uses. Sandpaper.
Ah, sandpaper. The unsung hero of smooth surfaces.
Right. And get this. Sandpaper isn't actually made of sand.
I bet a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of a mind blower. So if it's not sand, what is it?
Well, it's something called an abrasive grain. These are like tiny, super hard particles that are glued onto a backing. Could be paper, cloth, even foam.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So what are these magic grains made of?
Well, there are a few main types. One of the most common is aluminum oxide. It's great for wood, metal, pretty much anything you need to sand.
Okay, so that's the go-to, the workhorse.
Exactly. You'll find it in different colors, like pink, white, brown, and the color actually tells you what grit range it is.
Oh, really? So it's like a secret code for sandpaper.
Pretty much. Now, another type is silicon carbide. This one's known for creating super smooth finishes, especially on harder materials.
Like what kind of materials?
Glass, metal, things like that.
Interesting. So if I want a really polished look, silicon carbide's the way to go.
Exactly. It's the only abrasive you can use on glass, actually.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So we've got aluminum oxide for everyday sanding, silicon carbide for the fancy finishes. What about those heavy-duty jobs?
For those, you need something tougher, like ceramic alumina or zirconia. These are super durable, great for metal, especially if you need to remove a lot of material quickly.
Ah, okay, so they're like the power tools of sandpaper.
You got it. Now, one thing to remember is that the type of grain also affects how the sandpaper breaks down as you use it. That's called friability.
Viability. That sounds complicated.
It's not, really. Think of it like this. A highly friable grain will break down easily, creating new, sharp edges as you sand.
Oh, interesting. So it's like self-sharpening sandpaper.
Exactly. A less friable grain will last longer, but it might not cut as aggressively.
Got it. So it's about finding the right balance depending on the project.
Exactly. Another thing to consider is whether you want open coat or closed coat sandpaper.
What's the difference?
Open coat means the abrasive grains are spaced out on the backing, which helps prevent clogging.
Okay, so that's good for rough sanding when you're making a lot of sawdust.
Right. Closed coat sandpaper has more grains packed in, so it gives you a smoother finish, but it can clog more easily.
So closed coat for finer sanding, open coat for the rough stuff.
Y-
Got it.
You're a pro already. Now, remember, sandpaper is just one type of abrasive. You also have things like grinding wheels, which are solid abrasives, great for sharpening tools.
Okay, yeah, I've seen those.
And then you have loose abrasives, which are just abrasive grains, not attached to anything.
What would you use those for?
Things like polishing, superfine finishing. One of your sources mentions something called rotten stone, which is actually finely crushed abrasive.
Rotten stone. Sounds kind of gross.
Yeah, the name's not great, but it's really good for getting a beautiful, smooth sheen on wood. You mix it with oil, and it works wonders.
Interesting. Well, I guess even rotten things can have their uses, right?
That's right. Okay, now that we've smoothed things out with abrasives, let's move on to something that holds everything together. Adhesives.
Glue! I love a good glue project.
Me too. But there's actually a lot more to it than just slapping some glue on and hoping for the best.
Really? I just grab whatever's under the sink, usually.
Well, choosing the right adhesive can make a huge difference in how well your project holds up, especially in the long run.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's talk glue.
Let's do it. First things first, you gotta know the lingo. Shelf life, that tells you how long the glue lasts before it goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
Assembly time, that's how long you have to position your pieces after you apply the glue. Some glues dry super fast.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely had some glue panic moments.
Then you have clamp time, how long you need to clamp those pieces together to make sure they bond well. And finally, curing time, that's how long it takes for the adhesive to reach full strength.
Wow. Okay. I'm starting to see why choosing the right glue is important.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it all depends on the materials you're using, what kind of environment the project will be in, and how strong you need that bond to be.
So for woodworking, we'd be looking at wood glue, right?
Exactly. Let's dive into that wonderful world.
Sounds good to me. Let's get sticky. All right, let's dive into this world of wood glue then.
Okay, so first up, we've got hide glue.
Hide glue, as in like made from animal hides?
Yep, that's the one. It's actually been around for centuries. Super old school.
Wow, really? I had no idea.
Yeah, furniture makers used to use it all the time.
Huh. So it must be pretty strong if it's lasted that long.
It is, and it's got this cool thing. It's reversible.
Reversible. What do you mean?
So you can soften it with heat and moisture. Actually take a piece apart if you need to.
Oh, that's handy. Especially if you're like restoring old furniture.
Exactly. Now, for more everyday stuff, there's PVA, the classic white glue.
Oh yeah, PVA. I've got a whole bottle of that under my sink.
Pretty much everyone does. It's great for general woodworking, easy to use, non-toxic.
Yeah, definitely user friendly.
Right. But if you need something stronger, faster setting, there's aliphatic resin.
Aliphatic resin. Okay. What's
Yeah.
that good for?
Lots of things. It's got better water resistance than PVA, not affected by solvents.
So a bit more heavy duty.
Exactly. Now, if you're building something that needs to be waterproof, there's polyurethane glue.
Polyurethane glue. Okay. I think I've used that before.
It's super strong, versatile, bonds really well. But here's a little tip.
Mm-hmm.
It actually needs moisture to cure properly.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so sometimes if you dampen the surfaces a little bit, it helps the glue bond even better.
Good to know. I might have messed that up a few times then.
It happens. Now, if you're the ultimate waterproof champion, there's Resorcinol glue.
Resorcinol, that rings a bell. Isn't that the one that leaves a dark glue line?
You got it.
Yeah.
Super strong, stands up to the elements, but yeah, that glue line can be a bit noticeable.
Okay, so maybe not the best choice for every project.
Right, it depends on what you're making. Now, for those times when you need a super fast bond, there's contact cement.
Ah, contact cement, that stuff's amazing. Like instant gratification, right?
Pretty much. You apply it to both surfaces, let it dry, then press them together, boom, instant bond.
So satisfying. No waiting around.
And then for those tricky situations where you need to fill gaps, there's epoxy.
Epoxy. Yeah, that's like the duct tape of the glue world, right?
Kind of. It's
Yeah.
super strong, versatile, bonds all kinds of materials, even wood and metal.
So it's the go-to for those like emergency repairs when you need to really fix something up.
For sure. All right, now that we've covered the wonderful world of wood glue, let's shift gears and talk about something else that holds things together. Fasteners.
Fasteners. All right, I'm guessing we're talking nails, screws, all that good stuff.
You got it. And just like with glue, there's a whole science to choosing the right fastener for the job.
Really? I usually just grab whatever's closest.
Well, there are actually different types of fasteners for different purposes. Let's start with the basics. Non-threaded fasteners.
Non-threaded, so not screws.
Right. Things like nails and staples. These rely on friction to hold things in place.
So you just hammer them in and they stay put?
Pretty much. But even within nails, there are different types. Common nails, those are your workhorses, good for general construction.
Mhm.
Box nails, they have a narrower shank, less likely to split the wood.
Oh, I see. So it's all about using the right nail for the right job.
Exactly. And then you have finishing nails. Those have tiny heads, good for when you don't want the nail to show.
Like for trim work and stuff.
Exactly. Now, for staples, those are actually super versatile too. Used in upholstery, roofing, even some types of woodworking.
Wow, I never thought of using staples for woodworking.
It's more common than you might think.
Ah.
Okay, now let's move on to threaded fasteners.
Threaded, so we're talking screws now.
Right, screws, bolts, things like that. These have those helical ridges, the threads, that actually bite into the material.
So they create a stronger hold than just friction.
Exactly. Wood screws, those are great for, well, wood. They have a tapered point, coarse threads, really grip the wood well.
Got it. What about when you're working with metal?
Then you might need a self-tapping screw. These actually create their own threads as you drive them in.
No way. That's amazing. Less work for me.
Right. And then there are lag screws. Those are heavy duty, used for structural stuff. And bolts, those need a nut to secure them in place.
So bolts are like the two-piece fastener?
Exactly. Now, what about those times when you need to attach something to a wall where there's not solid wood to grip onto?
Yeah, that's always a challenge. Drywall, especially.
That's where anchors come in. They give your fastener something to grab onto so it doesn't just pull out of the wall.
Anchors, okay, so they're like the middleman between the screw and the wall.
Exactly. There are different types, like toggle bolts. Those have wings that expand behind the wall, super strong. And then screw anchors, those expand as you tighten the screw.
So toggle bolts for heavy stuff, screw anchors for lighter things.
Makes sense, right? Okay, now let's move on to something that can really speed up your projects. Power tools.
Power tools, all right. I do love the feeling of a good power sander.
Me too. But power tools also require a bit of respect, you know. We talked about choosing the right adhesives and fasteners, but now let's talk about safety.
Safety first, always.
You got it. One of your sources specifically mentions pneumatic nailers. Those are super powerful. Can be a bit intimidating if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. They fire nails like a machine gun.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So first things first, always wear safety glasses. A flying nail is no joke.
Right. Definitely don't want to lose an eye.
And never, ever point a nailer at yourself or anyone else. Treat it like it's always loaded, even when you know it's not.
Got it. Safety first. What else should we keep in mind?
Make sure you understand how the tool works before you use it. Read the manual. If you're not sure about something, ask someone who knows.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right, exactly. And keep your work area clean and well lit. A cluttered workspace is an accident waiting to happen.
Good point. It's easy to let things get messy when you're in the zone.
I know, right? But taking a few minutes to clean up can make a big difference.
Okay, so safety, cleanliness, what about maintenance? How do we keep those power tools running smoothly?
Great question. And you've actually got a source that talks about that. First and foremost, keep those tools clean. Dust and debris are the enemy.
Okay, we talked about that for safety, but it's also important for maintenance.
It is. All that dust and stuff can get into the moving parts, cause all sorts of problems.
What kind of problems?
Decreased performance, wear and tear, even damage in some cases.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize it was that serious.
It can be. So regular cleaning is a must. Now, another important thing is regular inspection.
Inspection, like what are we looking for?
Any signs of damage, really. Check the cords, plugs, switches, moving parts. Anything seems off, don't ignore it.
Got it. So if it looks broken, probably best not to use it.
Exactly. And then there's lubrication. Many power tools need regular lubrication to keep those moving parts happy.
Lubrication. Okay. I'm guessing the owner's manual will tell you what to use.
It will. It's like a Bible for your power tools.
Yeah.
And last but not least, proper storage is super important.
Storage. All right. What's the best way to store power tools?
Dry, clean environment, away from any moisture or extreme temperatures. And make sure they're safely put away when you're not using them.
So basically, treat them with respect, like you would any valuable piece of equipment.
Exactly. Okay, now that we've covered power tool care, let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture.
Okay, where are we going with this?
Well, we've been talking about all these amazing materials and tools, but have you ever wondered where they came from? Like, what's the history behind all this?
Now that you mention it, yeah, I'm curious. I mean, people have been building stuff for ages, right?
Right. Long before power tools. Even before sandpaper and glue like we know it.
So what did they use back then?
Well, for abrasives, they had to get creative. They used things like sand, stone, even shark skin.
Shark skins.
Yep. Yeah. It's naturally abrasive, so they used it to smooth and polish things.
Wow, that's amazing. What about glue? Did they have some kind of prehistoric super glue?
Not quite. They used things like tree sap, animal hides, beeswax, all natural ingredients.
So even back then, people were finding ways to make things stick together.
They were. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. From those early days to now, we've come a long way.
That's for sure. We've got all these amazing tools and materials at our disposal.
We do. And as technology keeps advancing, who knows what we'll come up with next.
That's exciting to think about. But for now, let's bring it back to the present. We still have some more ground to cover, right?
We do. We've got to talk about those ready-to-assemble cabinets, the ones that come in flat packs.
Ah, yes, the IKEA effect. I've definitely spent my fair share of time wrestling with those.
Those are a whole other world of fasteners. We'll get into that next.
All right, let's talk about those ready-to-assemble cabinets then.
You know, the ones that come in those flat packs.
Exactly. Those things can be a real puzzle sometimes.
Yeah, but they're designed that way for a reason, you know?
Really? Why is that?
Well, for one thing, it makes them easier to ship and store, takes up less space.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about putting them together? I mean, the fasteners that hold those things together, are they special?
You actually sent in an article all about that. RTA cabinets, they've got their own whole system of fasteners.
Fascinating. So what kind of fasteners are we talking about here?
One of the most common is the cam lock, also called the bolt and cam connector.
Cam lock. Okay, I think I've seen those before.
It's pretty simple, actually. You've got a bolt with a special head, and it goes into this cam, usually made of metal or plastic.
And then what? How does that hold the cabinet together?
When you turn the bolt, the cam rotates, and that pulls the two pieces together.
Oh, I see. So it's like a clamping action.
Exactly. Now, there's also something called a concave bolt connector.
Concave bolt connector. Okay, what's special about that one?
It's similar to the cam lock, but it's got this extra set screw that locks the bolt in place.
So it's like extra security, make sure it doesn't come loose.
Exactly. And then there's the wedge pin connector. That one uses a wedge-shaped pin to draw the pieces together.
Interesting. So many different options. How do you know which one to use?
Well, it depends on the specific joint, how much strength you need, things like that.
Makes sense. I'm starting to see why those RTA cabinets can be so sturdy, even though they come in pieces.
They're actually pretty well engineered when you think about it.
They are. All right, so we've covered abrasives, adhesives, fasteners. We've even gone through power tool safety and maintenance.
I think we've pretty much covered all the bases, right?
I think so. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive.
It's been a blast exploring all these essential materials with you.
It has. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep creating.
Happy making, everyone!